Gallons of sewage spilled into the river, and Sky 9 was over the cleanup efforts in Cabin John earlier this afternoon. Take a look here. D.C. officials are looking at lifting water restrictions on Monday, which means it's safe to touch and fish out of. Our Matt Gregory spoke with the Environmental Protection Agency today to figure out, Matt, what role the federal government is playing and what's next.
Yeah, any restrictions may be ending, but there's still an investigation, a long-term fix, and a cleanup to be done. And after weeks of local control, who's in charge now? The EPA says the federal government is. Back in January, after the sewage spill, University of Maryland researchers found high levels of E. coli and antibiotic-resistant bacteria in the Potomac, and riverkeepers and researchers alike were shocked.
I think needs to do more to at least alert the public that this is dangerous.
As the cleanup and fix continued, people in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia wanted guidance.
We should put signs up and let people know so people could be more aware of what's going on.
EPA has had boots on the ground since the spill occurred.
Today at Resume, I talked with Jessica Kramer from the Office of Water at the EPA. She says despite protests from politicians, the EPA has been involved since the spill first happened.
What changed last week was after the emergency declaration was issued, EPA is now serving in the federal lead role for coordinating across the federal agencies.
Kramer says before, D.C. Water was the lead agency. Now the EPA is in charge. They've stepped in providing more labs for water testing, evaluating cost sharing for the repairs and cleanup, and now the next phase, remediation.
And so cleaning the land off, some of that may include taking a certain amount of topsoil off, a little bit of clearing in that respect. Replanting that will occur.
I also asked, will the EPA play a role in the investigation into what went wrong?
I can't speak to that at this moment. I don't know what that will look like, but that certainly falls within EPA's wheelhouse.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like the EPA will be involved in the investigation, but to what extent, they could not say. Now, we need to emphasize, as we have this entire time, drinking water that's not affected by this spill. And also today, we're learning Maryland plans to lift its shellfish harvesting ban on March 10th. So the oyster beds of the lower Potomac have been closed for several weeks as a precaution. That should be lifted on the 10th of March. I'm Matt Gregory. Back to you, Annie.
All right, so progress being made, but it sounds like it is still far from being over.